all good. So before we get into the new album, I want to know, first and foremost, this pandemic 5 years ago rearranged everything, threw us all into a tailspin, especially musicians and creatives. How did you make it through this pandemic, and how is it radiated either into this project or what you're doing in 2025?
Oh gosh, I was not expecting that question, and that is an excellent question. I teach full time at Fullerton College, and I run the jazz voice department there. And so, not only creatively as a performing artist, but as an educator too. So I was, as we all were, but I thrown into all of a sudden learning Adobe Premiere, all of a sudden learning Logic Pro, making the virtual choir videos. I didn't know what I was doing. So, well, and then can't forget the sourdough bread.
Yes, of course.
But it threw us all for a loop. And I mean, it was a humongously creative time, but also an exhausting time.
Yeah.
And, trying to do these lessons plans, I had never taken a class online before, so I didn't know what that actually looked
Yeah.
like. And here we are, all expected to do everything online and fix everybody's problems with their internet. And, I mean, it was kind of an insane time as a teacher.
Yeah.
And so I felt like as a teacher and an artist, I had to be even more, I had to demonstrate even more. And now I had to figure it out doing it through the lens of a camera.
Yeah.
And it was exhausting. Everything was through a camera.
It's interesting because now we're all so well versed at it, like even with Zoom. Like I used to do everything in audio, and then I got onto Zoom, and then it was like now it's all Zoom, which is good because it's just better quality. It makes more sense, but it's weird how almost archaic we were about how we did things. But we were just humans. We met in person. That's just all doctor's appointments, shows, everything we did. But it is strange. For me, I amped up all of my interviews, and the strangest thing for me was to just hear all these musicians that were busy every day of the year that were dormant. And especially in New York, where you're like stacked up in this like sardine box. And for the first week or two, it's cute that your neighbor plays a horn. But after a month, you're like, if I hear that thing, I'm gonna lose it. And then everybody's looking at each other with masks. It was just at one point, I remember watching TV. There was a PSA on, and my son's on the spectrum, and at that point, he would have been 15. And there was this PSA that came up, and it was like, "Stay 6 feet apart. Don't breathe on each other. Don't do all this." And I was like, "That's the antithesis of what we're taught in kindergarten." Like everything we were conditioned as adults to be with each other as sentient beings was thrown completely out the window.
Hmm.
And then that just radiated into all of the weirdness that went into the political nature and how we're going to do it. And I mean, it's like human beings just get messy, when things like that
They,
happen.
they do. And along with the messiness, they hid behind the computer too
Yeah.
and contributed to the comments and the trolling on people's social media, and they weren't nobody's held accountable for
Right.
it.
Right. I know. I know.
And yeah, it's frustrating. And during that time, I'm also a mother, and
Mm.
my son was in 6th grade. And it's trying to help them do something that I have no idea what we're doing either. And him just being locked up in his room
Yeah.
all day long. And like you said, it was cute for the first, oh, it'll just be a couple weeks and then we'll all go back to normal. That's what we were told at
Of
school.
course. Of course.
And I had chosen this option. I didn't want my ensembles to meet online. What are we going to do online?
Yeah.
And it was only supposed to be for a couple weeks that
Uh-huh.
we were going to be online. So I'm
Uh-huh.
like, that's fine, but we can't do this for more
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, then it turned into a lot more than that. And then we
Yeah,
were just kind of forced to do it. And I don't know how we did it.
I know. I don't either.
We
Now
just
that
had to.
yeah,
And I'm thankful for the amount of space that I do have
yeah.
in my home, and that I'm not packed in those big apartment buildings, and that, I could not imagine.
Yeah, it was wild. So spicy, classy, a little sassy. Talk to me about the album. What was the idea behind it? And like just having it in your hands, how does it feel that it's out in the world?
Um, I love it. It's so much fun. It just was such a fun album. And speaking of pandemic, the title came from an assignment that I gave my students.
Wow.
Yeah, in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, it's funny how this is now coming full circle in this interview is um I was taking that Adobe Premiere class,
Yeah.
and 'cause I didn't know what I was doing. And one of our assignments was to do a self interview. And I had a set of assignments going for my own students where they had to write, I gave them all these different assets to create a jingle. Okay. And so I combined these two worlds because I needed to do some sort of demonstration for my students. And I had to do this other assignment. And so I did this self interview, and I'm like, I'll just write a theme song for myself that'll open up my little self interview show.
Yeah.
And came up with those three words and just went with it. Did this like 5-part harmony with it because I was learning Logic at the same time. And so I wrote this jingle, and that was the title of it:
Wow.
Spicy, Classy, and a Little Sassy. And I was kind of saving it for, I don't know what I was saving it for. Maybe a big band album.
Yeah.
And then I went, you know what? I can't save it anymore. It's got to, 4 years later, we've got to get this title out. And so I chose a bunch of these tunes that explored the spicy, classy, and a little sassy side of love. Because
So
it's
let
great, and it's not so great sometimes too.
right. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. So let's go to the beginning. You really started early. You started at 4 with
Mhm.
the piano.
Mhm.
How did what was it about your childhood that got you to that point so early, and how has that kind of turned into your career?
I started piano as my mom tells it. My sister was playing something on the piano over and over and over again. And I sat down at the piano and just started playing it and did it in a different key, which really made her really mad because it sounded the same, but wasn't the same. And so that's when my mom was like, she's going into piano lessons. There's something there. And so I was in lessons. They had kind of put me in various young competitions and things like that. And I just grew not liking that aspect of it. It was in classical piano, and I loved classical piano, but I just didn't like that pressure.
Yeah.
And I was about to quit my in high school because I had accompanied for everything, and I did like it, but the pressure was just, I just didn't want it. And I was also an athlete too. And so my mom, who was just somehow so well connected in our small little town, she had heard that the jazz piano player in the jazz choir at the high school was, a senior that year, and they were looking for a possible replacement. And she made a deal with me that one year, try it one year, and you can take piano lessons from her piano teacher, who was a jazz piano teacher.
Yeah.
And here we are.
There we go. It all worked out. Who were early influences? Who were you kind of emulating? Who were you looking up to?
Um, in piano early on, it was really mostly just learning because I came from such a heavy reading background and was so literal with what was on the page that was really hard to read chord progressions and, oh, just wing it. Oh, here, make these sounds. And on piano, that was really difficult for me. And Um, so it was mostly my piano teacher and kind of what he had given me. I really loved Oscar Peterson.
Yeah.
I actually went to college initially for in jazz piano and jazz piano and classical piano. But I loved to sing so much,
Yeah.
and I think by the second year it went to music education, and I wanted it to be choral education because that's how I had done my high school, and I just loved it.
Yeah.
And so I figured, well, I better learn how to sing if I'm going to do that. So we switched instruments, and I always played piano still, and
Yeah.
but yeah, I still do. But yeah, Charlie Parker, or I'm sorry, Oscar Peterson,
Yeah.
um, Thelonious Monk were my first two piano albums.
What was the first live show you saw that blew you away, that made you think, that made launched the dream that you want to get up there and do that one day?
Oh, that's interesting. Early on,
Yeah.
probably New York Voices and Kurt Elling.
Okay. Wow. That's a big one.
And that was like that was like the first few years of New York Voices.
Wow.
And I guess honestly, then Kurt Elling as well.
Yeah.
you know. And I just, I love the storytelling aspect of singing and that intimate environment. And I love the harmonies that New York Voices that they sing, um, and their collaboration with each other. And then Kurt Elling is just a masterful vocalist as well. And watching him direct a band on stage and tell that story and improvise and just be in the moment, I think those two concerts were probably the most influential, you know.
So let me ask you this. When you get to the point where you have this dream of being a performer, you want to get on stages. What was the first stage that you wished you could be on and you were on and you almost had to pinch yourself? You're like, all right, it's happening. I'm here. The dream's happening.
Whew. You know, gosh, it would probably in grad school I got to perform in Europe. And it was with a group, and I will never ever forget that.
Yeah.
Even in my undergrad, we went to Italy and got to perform in the major cathedrals and perform these madrigals, and the music that was performed in these places. But in jazz, we got to do some things in grad school in Belgium and in France, and that was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
I would never have gotten to do something like that. Then, fast forward to my professional career in Los Angeles, which wasn't too long after graduate school. I got to perform at places like the old Steamers Jazz Club that's actually here in Fullerton,
Yeah.
or was in Fullerton. I was following Steamers on NPR when I was in college.
Yep.
I knew exactly what was going on. And that place is literally 4.5 miles from my house right now.
Yeah.
And so being able to perform there, being able to perform at the Blue Whale in downtown Los Angeles, which has sadly closed, but is opening a new location
Oh,
very
good.
soon.
That's great news. Yeah.
Yes. Um, so those kinds of intimate clubs that I just held so high on this high pedestal because they're just such amazing
Yeah.
places
Yeah.
was incredible to be able to perform in those places.
Yeah.
There was another performance that I was able to do at the Spokane Jazz Orchestra at the Bing Crosby Theater in downtown Spokane.
Wow.
And it's this old 1920s Art Deco theater that I never thought I would perform in anything like that. And I'm originally from Washington State, so
Yeah,
I knew all about that theater as well. So I've had some wonderful opportunities.
absolutely. What do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What pushes you to evolve as an artist?
Um, Sound.
Yeah.
You know, creating. I love arranging, and I think my mind is built for puzzles. My
Hmm.
son's is as well. And arranging is like a big, huge musical puzzle. And I love listening to a bunch of different music, not necessarily jazz, of course jazz, but not necessarily, and putting all these pieces together. Um, so I'm constantly inspired by all kinds of music. And I get up and I do a run. I'm saying run, but let's say run, walk, light jog
Yeah.
every day. But I always have music. I
Yeah.
always have music in my ear. And constantly stopping and I'm taking screenshots of what I'm hearing and when I'm hearing it because I'm like immediately saying, this would fit here, or oh, that's a great idea. Oh, here's this theme that I can go with.
Yeah.
I'm constantly inspired by music, by nature. I love to garden. I love to think. I love to, I'm constantly inspired.
So do you think this love of puzzles that you have with your son is nature or nurture?
Ooh, I don't know.
I just think sometimes as a parent, like, why, like, my son will do something. I'm like, there's no, I didn't do that. It
Mhm,
just
mhm.
happened. It's weird how those things happen. Like for you, was that just something that you innately were born with? Like you just, puzzles made sense.
I I think so. I
Yeah.
mean, I think, reading music, I was able to do quickly, you know. And that's interesting because my son from a very early age, we used to buy him puzzles and he would sit there for 3 hours and we'd have 30 puzzles all over the floor. But I also noticed that when there would be a puzzle on the table, I'm there and I'm focused
Yep.
and I'll do it. But I didn't grow up doing puzzles,
Yeah. Okay.
you know,
All right.
but here I am and
Yeah.
I'm focused and I'm there,
Yeah.
you
That's
know.
interesting. So
Yeah.
it's funny you mention LA and nature. There was a I always reference this interview. There was someone that I interviewed that had a album that was called Bird Songs. And it was about the way the horn would mimic nature and how you would hear these birds. And there was a story that she told me about Eric Dolphy used to go outside in LA and he would literally just play the horn and follow the bird sounds you know
Oh,
the tones, the octaves, the length, just all of that. And it's fascinating because nature is the original music you know
wow.
and especially when you start throwing horns and strings in there, it's like you can just get this cacophony of sound that mimics what's just naturally here. It's crazy
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know um so let me ask you this: why do you love this art form we call jazz?
It's it's challenging, it's touching, um, it's intimate, it's thoughtful, it's different every time. I don't ever perform anything the same way twice.
Yeah.
And I love that about it, and I think it's expected. It's expected in jazz. You're always evolving, you're always learning.
It's a gift that you give the world, and I realize that with all of the voices and the interviews that I've done with the jazz world, is that I've found this reverence for the temporality of life, of things happening once. Like when you see some weird motorcycle going down the street and some zigzag, and you're like, how are they still alive? But there's an eloquence, there's a poetry to how they move through traffic, right? And it's
Mhm.
never going to happen like that again. And it's the same way at a show. I mean, I remember one time at the Blue Room off 18 and Vine, there was a Cincinnati piano player that was there, and there was a big storm raging outside. I mean, the trees were bent in half, the rain's pounding the windows, and all of a sudden the electricity goes off. But he's playing. The bass player's still playing. But everything electric is done, and the crowd just kind of stops. And then we just all kind of start laughing and start clapping because it just kept going. And it's just like that. There's nothing like that that will ever happen again.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
way you can plan on that. There's you have to be trained to be alive on this planet long enough to tell yourself, I'm going to keep playing. That's just all there is to it. And then you create that indelible moment for the crowd that we'll never forget. I've been talking about it for 8 years now, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Well, and it's this universal language around the world.
Yeah.
And I can go anywhere and I can say, "Hey, you want to do Autumn Leaves in C minor?" All right, let's go.
Yep.
And we just do it. In fact, I've done that before, and I've done it. Gosh, one of a really memorable situation that I had was Berklee College of Music in Boston. I am one of the advisors for, we have a transfer agreement program with them. And we had our global partnership meeting on their Valencia campus in Spain. And so all of us from all over the world came together, and we were upstairs, having a couple shots of tequila together. And we just broke out in song,
Yeah.
no instruments, and we're improvising. And it was this language that we all knew how to do.
Yep.
I don't know how great it was. But I will never, ever forget that moment, that
Yeah.
here I'm sitting with someone from Paris, from Venezuela,
Yeah.
from France, and we're all together
Yeah.
doing this universal language.
It's wild. So let me ask you this. Speaking of live music and the reverie that goes into it, the spontaneity, if you could get into a time machine and see one show with your own eyes, where are you going?
Where am I going? Oh,
It's a lot of shows.
could I just put my dream band together?
Yeah, of course you can. You can
Um,
orchestrate. Yeah.
okay, so I would see Nancy Wilson with the Cannonball Adderley Quintet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is
Wonderful.
that is my bread and butter right there.
I would have to see Ella the first time she stepped foot on the Apollo Theater stage, is that scared little girl on that vicious crowd, and how she just laid him to rest. Just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, it was
Hmm.
over with. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, students, everyone on the bandstand, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hmm. Um. Oh gosh.
This is the therapy part.
You ask really thoughtful questions here. I
Yeah.
don't know about this. Who do I think I am? Well, I'm gonna be honest and say I have like humongous imposter syndrome, and I think there's a lot of jazz musicians who will say the exact same thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, there are days where I believe in myself, and there are days where I'm like, what am I doing? You know? But when I get on that stage, I take charge, and in a nice way, in this, community sort of way. And I feel like I'm a very trusting individual on stage. I feel like people will go with me because they trust me. They trust my musicianship.
Yep.
Um, I'm shocked at the number of people and the caliber of people that say yes to performing with me for almost no money, you know? And so I think about that and I'm like, I think it's about trust.
Yeah.
They know that my charts are going to be clear. They know that I've done the work. They know that I have a past. I've studied the past, but I'm also in constant uh, what's the word? I'm not elevation. That's funny.
Evolution.
Evolution. There's
Yeah.
what
Yeah. Yeah.
evolution. And I don't know. I think I'm confident in that way of my abilities when I get on stage. It's just let's go. Everything goes out the window except for the music in the moment.
And that trust leads to a good reputation at the end of the day.
I think so.
Spicy, classy, a little sassy, the new album. If anybody wants to pick up a copy that's going to benefit you the most, catch you live, any of the other good work that you've done, are doing, where do they go?
They can go to my website, and I'm going to spell my name.
Okay.
JAMIESHEW music.com.
Okay.
You can find everything there. Yeah, I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple Music. I'm on all of those streaming services and YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will put all the links in the show notes. Jamie, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful to meet you.
It's great to meet you.